Hi everyone, and welcome to our Google Hangout. We're brought to you today by iStock by Getty Images, your small business partner and complete creative resource for all your projects. I'm Sarah Lockding. I'm the External Communications Director here at Getty Images, and joining me today in our New York office, we have global branding expert Julie Cottineau, founder of Brand School Online, the premier branding school for small businesses and entrepreneurs. We also have Terry Byford with us today, who is our Director of Legal here at Getty Images. So this is our first Google Hangout, so we ask you to please bear with us. But we're very excited to be here, and what we're going to do is talk you through the top 5 mistakes when it comes to branding that small businesses make. So the idea is that at the end of this hour, you'll walk away with some helpful information about branding missteps and some legal ones, and most importantly, how you can avoid them. So no doubt you'll have questions, and we really want to hear them. So please fire away. You can submit them on the Google Hangout page, and we'll be answering the questions as we go. So don't hold back, start sending them through straight away. So with that, we'll jump in and get started. Our branding mistake number 1 is all about underestimating the power of brand. So Julie, can you get us started just with the basics, I think, and talk us through what exactly is a brand?
Sure, and I think this is the most important thing to understand, because a lot of people underestimate the power of brand because they define it very superficially. They think about it as a logo, a tagline, a website. But your brand really is your business.
Okay.
A strong brand is an entrepreneur's secret weapon. And when we talk about branding, we're really talking about your core brand promise. What are you offering to your consumers that's unique from your competition?
Okay, so a brand promise. If I was a small business and I'm setting up or I'm already in existence, how do I find my brand promise? What's that?
Where is it? How do I find it? Well, the most important thing is first to understand who it is that you're promising to, right?
Okay.
And once you have a clear idea of your target, then your brand promise should really be fundamentally what you offer that's different from your competition. And a great way to think about it is actually first to think about the problem that you solve. Right, a lot of strong brands are started by people because there's an issue. You want to do something better or faster or different from the competition. Now, I worked for Virgin for many years, and that's a real strength of Richard Branson's. He starts his businesses because he thinks things need to be shaken up. We need an alternative, a different way to do things. So that's what I would always start with. What's missing?
Okay, if I was going to, starting out looking at my brand promise, what are some tactics? What are the things that I would be looking at about my business to build that out? Are there specific questions I should be asking myself?
Yeah, there's 4 really fundamental questions in building a business, and they're a little bit like the journalist questions. Okay. They're who, what, why, and how. So who are you targeting? What are you promising that really connects with them, not just functionally, not just helps them get stuff done, but emotionally? Why should they believe you? And then how is it felt? And the how is super, super important for small businesses. So that's the things like your imagery, your website, your touch points.
Okay, and how does that actually directly impact the bottom line of the business? So what is the connection between getting your brand in place and actually at the end of the day helping you make money?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, if we look at really strong brands, they do several things. First of all, people are willing to pay more when they really connect with the brand promise. They're willing to try new products and services from a brand that they already love. If you look at Apple, for example, they're willing to stand in line for hours for the latest, the latest entry from their brand. Word of mouth is huge for brands. If you're really connected to a brand, you're going to tell all your friends and family and all the thousands of people that you don't even know on social media. And I think the last thing is that, we're all human. They're all human beings behind brands, and we mess up. And if you have a strong brand, inevitably, even Apple, even Richard Branson, we're all going to make a mistake once in a while. And if you have a strong brand, people are more apt to forgive you and try you again.
It's interesting. And when it comes to the articulation of a brand, can we talk a little bit about imagery and the importance of imagery and what type of imagery and the quality question.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're a small business, I think it's really important to have high quality imagery. You know, a lot of people that I meet and students in my brand school, they'll say, well, you know, I'm really invested all my time and my energy in building the product, but I'm just going to kind of throw up the website. I'm just going to get it out there quickly. I'm going to take pictures with my cell phone. Nobody will notice. Well, you know, I have news for you. They notice. So it's much better to invest in quality imagery, maybe have fewer images that are really top-notch, because you don't want to look, even if you're a small business, you don't want to look unprofessional. You know, small should still really be professional.
Okay, and what does the quality, that question, what does that mean for you, Terry, in a legal context?
For me, when I think about quality of imagery, it's not just about the aesthetic visual quality, although that is obviously important.
Sure.
For me, it's quality of source, where that content comes from. Now, there's clearly an abundance of content that's freely viewable online. Any of us can do, you know, a Google image search and find any number of images. Some of them may even be good looking. Some of them may be things that we would like to use. But more often than not, that content is not freely available to be used. It's viewable, and so many businesses, big and small, fall into this trap of thinking that because it's viewable and accessible, that somehow it's usable. That's almost always not the case. There is some public domain content on the internet. There's some content that can be licensed via a Creative Commons license, but more often than not, any decent image that you find on the internet has an owner, and the permission of that owner would be needed for a commercial reproduction of it. So in other words, simply operating in this right-click universe where looking for an image and taking it for your own use is not legal. And so doing that is a huge risk, not just in terms of, you know, in your position in the marketplace where there could be embarrassment and the need to replace an image if an issue arises. It's quite simply a legal issue. And that can create, you know, great monetary exposure for a small business, and that's clearly a risk. And to my mind, it's a completely unnecessary risk. And the reason I think it's unnecessary is because there are so many other options out there where content can be licensed legitimately with, you know, built-in guarantees. You know, there are companies like iStock and Getty Images that give that offering, and those licenses come with, you know, built-in guarantees and promises regarding the origin of that content, and essentially gives a business the right to use that content without having to worry about any kind of back-end legal issues arising down the line.
Yeah, and if I could just underscore that, I actually had a student at brand school who came to me after she discovered she had a lingerie company, and she created a name and she created a website, and she was at a trade show and she realized that her name was already taken by a much larger company that was 2 booths down, that some of the images that she used were really not available, and she had to redo everything, down to the hang tags, you know, on her clothing, her website, the hang tags, the name. She could have gone, there are sites like there's sites like uspto.gov where you can look and see if somebody has your trademark. So it's just, it's embarrassing, it's costly, and it's really, that makes you seem like a very small business when you make that mistake.
Taking the time to have just obtained a legitimate license could have saved all of that trouble, all of that expense, all of that embarrassment. It's there. It's available.
I think a lot of people do it inadvertently as well. So a lot of it is education.
Right.
But at the same time, there's also the consideration that the person that created that image, that's a business in itself.
Absolutely.
That's a small business too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. The contributors that supply content to us, you know, we're representing their livelihood. You know, they live off of those royalties that are garnered from our licensing of their content. They're small businesses. We represent those. Absolutely.
Now, we have a couple of questions that have come through. So the first one we have here, which I believe is for you, Julie, is how does one begin to start a brand? How does one monitor a small business brand? That's from Eric.
Yeah, that's a great question, Eric. I think really where to start is, again, figuring out what are you offering that's missing, that's new and different, and who are you targeting? And then answering those other questions of the who, what, why, and how. I wouldn't start right away with the website. That's something that I see a lot of people make a mistake. They think, okay, I'm starting this business right away. I'm going to print my business cards, get my website up. I think it's much better. And in fact, we start brand school with first making sure that you have a fundamental strategy, that you really have answered the tougher questions. And then actually you save money, because when you know who you want to serve and what you want to tell them, you know, your website takes 1 round instead of 25 rounds.
Sure.
You know, you don't have to keep reprinting and changing your business cards. And as far as the tools, I use a couple Google tools that are free actually to monitor my business. Google Analytics is a great tool to figure out your website traffic. It's super easy to install. And I actually also monitor my business name, my personal name, a lot of things about me on Google Alerts.
Yeah, and your competitors.
And my competitors. Yeah. And I have actually found people infringing on my trademark, or, you know, people inadvertently most of the time. Using my intellectual property through Google Alerts. And then it's also fun just to see, you know, an alert that says, hey, you know, I'm watching this Google Hangout with Julie from BrandTwist. It's kind of fun to see that pop up too.
Great. Okay, well, we'll move on to our branding mistake number 2, which is targeting everyone and reaching no one. So why doesn't it work for brands to just try and attract everyone and get as much exposure as possible?
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but that's such a huge mistake. People say, I'm a small business, I don't want to exclude anyone, I'm just going to cast the net really wide.
Small customers,
yeah, I'm going to build my field of dreams and hope people come. But, you know, it really doesn't work that way. And the reason why it doesn't work that way is when you're trying to target everybody, then no one can really figure out and say, hey, that's a brand for me, that's a solution for me. So it's much better to go after your tribe, you know, to figure out the people, even if it's a small group at first, that your brand, your business can really, really help. And get those people to become loyal brand ambassadors. And then they're going to spread word of your brand to their friends and their colleagues and family. And that's a much smarter way to build your business. You know, it drives me crazy when people say, I'm targeting women 25 to 54. I mean, that's a census box. You know, that's not really a target audience.
So that's an interesting point, the word of mouth. And I've heard you refer before to word of eye as well. So can you talk a little bit about the power of word of mouth and word of eye as well?
We just actually wrote an article for Forbes a little while ago about word of eye, because the way that people communicate now, because of things like Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook, it's so much visual. You know, you see people having a great meal or on a great vacation or having, you know, bought something in a great store, they're going to take a picture and post it. So word of eye is super important. And even giving your followers, your brand ambassadors, you know, through things like social media, images that are, you know, where the licensing has been taken care of, that then they can share. You know, you want to make them, they're your marketing team, right? You want to make them part of the story.
So social media really has changed that landscape.
Totally.
It's just allowed for that greater connectivity.
Yeah. So that point about tactics, like now that you've got this loyal tribe, how can you really leverage them and ensure that you maintain them and build that relationship and nurture it? So there's some tactics that you could suggest for people to put into action to make sure they're looking after those connections.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to keep those connections fresh. You know, you have to constantly give them new news and new things to want to share. And it's very similar to if you have a friend that was always trying to talk to you about the same thing. You know, you're going to be a little bored hanging out with that friend. Brands are the same thing. And we've actually seen, I thought this was really interesting, that most small businesses update the imagery on their websites less than once a month. Right. But those businesses that update it more frequently, like more than 5 times a month, see 300% increase in traffic. So 3 times as many people come. Now you might say, you know, I've had people say to me, well, Julie, that sounds like a great tactic, but where do I get all those images? You know, you have to feed the machine.
Well, that's once a week at least.
Right, so yeah. And that's where I actually think having a subscription service, in my own business, that's what I do. You know, having a subscription service like iStock really helps you, because it's this constant stream of, oh, I have a neat idea, or it's almost 4th of July, or it's Father's Day, or, you know, whatever, or it's the World Cup, you know, whatever's going on in the world, you can update that and keep things fresh and keep giving them something to talk about.
Sure, and to Terry's point before, if you are doing that under subscription, you're ensuring that your images are pre-tiered.
Absolutely. The beauty of the subscription is that it's built in with that refresh aspect. You know, it's all there there's new fresh stuff to look at. and be used.
So all you have to worry about is finding the right image.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yeah, and I think finding the right images is sort of an art in itself, and something that you can have a lot of fun with. And that's where knowing who your target is, back to, this mistake is really important. When I worked on Virgin, we had a very specific color scheme, we had a very specific visual and verbal tone of voice. And not everybody loved it. Some people were kind of offended by it, but we used to say, well, that's okay, because those people probably wouldn't have the chance of becoming loyal Virgin fans anyway. Because if you don't like the cheekiness, which is actually a view through the whole product experience, you're not going to like it. And so you can search for images to define your really specific visual word-of-eye tone of voice. By putting in keywords. So you might put in, if you're customer service, you might put in customer service plus innovation, or customer service plus fun, right? So you get these images that are, that are going to speak really to your target and connect with them.
That leads really nicely into the question, actually, that Caleb sent through. He's written here, I'm starting a business in nature photography and want to know the best way to go about branding that type of business. I plan on selling fine art prints.
Okay, well, congratulations, Caleb, first of all. I always love when I hear somebody starting a business. Beyond what I said before in terms of really knowing what your take on nature photography is different, how is it different, who are you serving, the thing about people in the creative business, I have a lot of graphic designers, marketing analysts, photographers in brand school, is the bar for you has to be higher. Because if you're going to say to clients, I can help you with your photography or your logo design or your marketing strategies, a lot of people suffer from sort of the cobbler's shoes. The cobbler's children are the ones that have no shoes, right? So the one thing that I would say is you've really got to pay attention to this, because your brand credibility is on the line, not just in what you say, but what you show.
Right.
Like it or not, if you're an expert helping other people, you've got to take it up a notch.
Sure. Okay.
The mistake that I see so often made by small businesses here is when they try and find that reach, they try and find that voice, and often a shortcut way of doing that is to default to using a well-known personality or a celebrity or something very recognizable. Yeah, absolutely. And that's hugely risky. I mean, celebrities and personalities are paid significant amounts of money to endorse businesses and products. And I've seen so many businesses, take a photo of a celebrity and use that picture of that celebrity in a way that suggests that celebrity endorses that product or that business. That's not legal. That's hugely risky, and throws up all sorts of considerations.
Caleb can't say Beyonce likes my nature photography.
Unless she really does.
Unless she really does.
Unless she happens to know that business and like it. That's a huge risk. And the beauty again of licensing photography from a company like iStock or Getty Images is that you can work with the assurance that the people appearing in those images have signed valid model releases permitting the use of their image. Now, admittedly, they're not necessarily a celebrity, so they don't have that cachet or that instant connectivity, but it does remove that risk. It's there and available.
Okay. Great, and we'll move on to our branding mistake number 3 now, which is blending in with the crowd. So can you give us some tips? How can we stand out with our branding?
Yeah, and this is, again, I see this is very common in small businesses, and it's one of the exercises that we start brand school with, actually, is we say print out your website and the website of 4 or 5 of your closest competitors, and cross out, take a big Sharpie and cross out the name and the logo, and can you tell one from another?
Yeah.
And I would say in many industries you can't. Because what happens is a small business will go into, let's say, real estate or insurance or health coaching, and they'll say, I've got to use images that let people know what I'm about. And the problem with that is they might let people know what category you're in, but then you're going to blend in. And the chances is that you probably have less budget than most people out there. I mean, I've yet to meet an entrepreneur that says, oh, I've got more money and more time and more staff than anybody. It's usually the opposite. So you just have to be more clever about it. You really have to use images that have a twist, that talk about your benefit but aren't exactly what people are expecting.
Okay, so you've talked about images there. What other elements of a brand or execution can a business owner use to try and stand out?
Well, you can definitely have a fresh tone of voice. You know, that's the great thing about being a small business. Chances are you don't have, 10 layers of management that want to improve every line on your website and on your marketing. So, you can definitely use a fresh tone of voice. You can use fresh imagery. And I think it's also really important to just be very consistent. But also to think outside the category. So one of the other exercises that we do in brand school is literally about twisting. So instead of thinking, if you're a real estate agent, instead of thinking, what are all the other real estate agents doing? Think about brands that you love that have nothing to do with real estate. So that could be Apple, IKEA. I don't know, what's one of your favorite brands?
I was going to say Nike.
Nike, that's a great brand. So Nike, Zappos, I'm very passionate about Zappos. And think about what would, somebody from Starbucks, another one of my favorite brands, if they took over your real estate agency or your dry cleaners, what would they do? And not meaning that they're just going to have better coffee and reception, but, chances are Starbucks is all about it's very clear what your options are, and maybe you can combine different plans and twist it up. So that's how I think you can stand out.
And it's a fine line because, on the one hand, there is this need to be original from a branding perspective, but it's also a legal consideration insofar as, again, this desire to maybe fast forward that connection. As a small business, you might want to make your business look like another business that already exists and is successful in your space. And there are ways and means of doing that, but it's tough to negotiate that legally sometimes because you need to be careful not to be passing off on the goodwill of that existing brand or using marks or colors that may have protection that are going to put you into hot water, and in the sense that you're seen as copying those brands, passing off is illegal. So this is a fine line to tread.
Exactly, and that's why, just to make clear to everybody, we always twist out of category. So don't look at what the biggest brand in your category is doing.
Okay.
Look way as far, if you're targeting young men, look at products for women. If you're targeting retail, look at something that's business to business. Go with the brands that you're personally passionate about, and that actually can help you get a clearer trademark. If you look at something like Starbucks, they don't use coffee in the name, right? They don't use the brown colors that we see in most coffee businesses.
Well, the logo is quite unexpected, really.
Do you know where that comes from?
No, I don't.
Do you know where that comes from? So actually, Starbucks is a character in Moby Dick that's drinking coffee throughout Moby Dick, First Mate. And now maybe the logo and the mermaid makes sense to you, right? And I think they've been able to really create a differentiated trademark and brand experience and logo because they didn't think about coffee, they thought about literature, right? And really twisted out a category.
And that was a small business.
Yes, it was a small business when it started.
And they had all of that scope and all those things they could have played with, and they went for a completely original angle. Something that we'd never seen before in that space.
Virgin's the same thing. I mean, Richard Branson's 40 plus years old now, but it started out as a very small business trying to go first into the music industry and then airlines, but created a very unique name and really thought about it as completely different.
Well, we've got one question that's coming here. So the question asked is, what new trends do you see in logo design? Speaking of Starbucks, what do you think is the most important thing or things that a logo should communicate?
I think logos need to be very telegraphic. And I think we're seeing a lot of logos lately where visually the name and the symbol kind of merge. So Twitter is a great example. You see the bird, you think of the name. Firefox, the same thing. I love what Google actually does with its logo. This is a big trend. When I first started out in the business, we absolutely could not touch a logo. A logo was a logo, and you couldn't change the colors. It was it was sacred. There was a Bible, and just looking what they did with the World Cup. They just and Father's Day. I love that. I think that to me acknowledges that the consumers are part of the equation. It's a little bit more elastic. It's a little bit more fun. There's certain things that they still, respect, that still are sacred. So, the other thing is authentic logos, things that look a little more hand-drawn.
Okay.
I think the Starbucks almost to me looks like a wood print a little bit, and simplicity. When you look at an Apple logo, a Target logo, they're so clean. Less is more, definitely.
And there's different applications too, because people use logos in so many different ways. So I guess there needs to be a certain amount of flexibility.
Yeah, there needs to be flexibility, but I think when you start with something that's fundamentally simple, when you see colors that you can own, like the IKEA logo, or, very simple shape, like the Apple or the Target logo, it extends to the whole branding. I mean, I think sometimes you look at ads for Apple and Target and IKEA, and you can figure out what brand it's for, even before the brand actually comes up on the screen.
Okay, we'll move on to our mistake number 4 now, which is forgetting that small can have a big impact. So this mistake is really about overlooking what's so great about being an SMB and how you can really make the most of that.
Yeah, and when I first started 25 years ago in this business, big was beautiful. Everybody wanted to be global. And people would say, we've got to look bigger than we are. We've got to put on our website that we have offices in Tokyo, London, New York. Sometimes that office was, a phone with an answering machine. But now I think small is beautiful. And we see this actually in cultural trends in general. People are really excited, for example, to go to farmers markets. And it's, we want to know what part of New Jersey are our tomatoes from, or, what farm, were these eggs grown on, and how did they treat the chickens? And, it seems like that's a real advantage, because I think people are disillusioned with big government, big business, and they want the story. They want to know who's the founder, what was their point of view, why did they get into this business? So I think it's a really exciting time to be a small business right now.
Sure. So what are some of the tactics that an SMB could use to really leverage those qualities? You've talked about telling the story of the founder, for example. What are other threads that they could pull out from their story, or different ways that they could articulate that through their branding?
Well, I think imagery is, pictures tell 1,000 words, right? So I think using imagery in a really authentic way is very exciting right now. And there have been big trends towards using photographs that show people looking off camera, or are black and white, or might not be perfectly coiffed and styled. So even though there probably are models, they don't look like it.
Well, a lot of our photographers street cast now.
Yes.
They don't necessarily go to models. So, I mean, that's all indicative of that trend.
Yeah, and I love seeing an image where it takes me a minute to kind of figure out what the story is, where there are multiple layers. So I think a lot of that is how you search. Again, I think if you're searching, you can search for images. There's some images that are unique to iStock, right? That you can't, that you won't find everywhere else.
Absolutely.
So, or you can put in, I don't know, mom plus authentic, or mom plus off camera when you're searching. And I think that's really cool. I think you should celebrate, your humanness.
Sure, but does that also bring up issues, I imagine, about what you're claiming and being truthful and legal implications of that potentially?
Yeah, I mean, the temptation is to, possibly kind of puff, your advertising a little bit and make it sound something a little more sensational than it is. And again, there are ways and means of doing that, but the core underline to that is that it has to be truthful. You cannot say that your product come from a particular place if they truly don't. You can't say that something is organic if it really isn't. So you have to just be very careful just to tread that line carefully. And on the point of authenticity, as you pointed out, the street casting stuff, that's great, and that's such a a good thing that we're seeing happening and developing in our business, because they are real people, in their real clothing, looking real.
We connect to.
Absolutely. And as well as they're not just like posed models, they're just day-to-day people, but they're still signing the same release that those models have. So they're granted exactly the same batch of rights and allowed the use of their image anywhere in the world for virtually any purpose. So again, that comes with that built-in security.
on that point about model releases and so on, if I'm a small business or if I'm a creative, and if I'm using Imagery to create, say, a website for a customer, can you just talk a little bit about the legalities of using Imagery in that context and what I just need to look out for?
Yeah, sure. The first thing that you just need to be careful of is just ensuring that the right license is obtained for you.
Okay.
You know, as a small business, you may engage a third party to, you know, go out and build your website and get all those licenses in for you. Yeah. You have to make sure that that third party secures those licenses in the right way that permits you, that small business, to take that license. You know, a license that is granted is non-assignable and non-transferable. So if, you know, that third party takes out that license in their own name only and doesn't specify a third party, it can sometimes create a little bit of confusion around there. So it is very good to ensure that, you know, your third party is instructed very clearly of the nature of the license they need to obtain, and that license is being obtained for your benefit, but for your business benefit.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but to simplify it, it really means that if you just have to know where those images are coming from.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day. So if images are being used in your branding, you need to ensure that they've come from
the right place with a legitimate license behind it. And you know, when that license is obtained from iStock, it comes with a built-in legal guarantee. You have the assurance that all the necessary rights in copyright and a whole bunch of other intellectual property rights have been sought and cleared, and that all necessary releases from all elements of that image that are necessary have been secured.
And if you're using iStock as an example, but once you've got the image, so you've licensed it, you've downloaded it, you can use that image in various places and,
Yeah, a standard license is worldwide and perpetual.
I think the same is true for testimonials, right, or employees, you know, because I know in my own branding I use a lot of testimonials for grad school students, and we're very generous, appear on video, appear on my website, but I do make sure, it's a very simple form, but I make sure to have them sign it.
Okay.
Because, you know, I might be using that for a long time, you know, after we're no longer in touch, and I want to make sure that it's okay. And that's a great way to tell your story. You know, a lot of people say, if I tell my story, I'm going to be bragging. You know, we don't. A lot of entrepreneurs that I've met and students that I've worked with say, well, I don't really want it to be all about us. But then don't make it about you. Make it about other people, right? Let other people tell the story. People you've helped, you know, clients you've helped, employees that love working there, you know, charities that you've donated to. Bring them into the story, but just make sure you have their permission.
Okay. Okay, and that leads us into our mistake number 5, which is overlooking the little moments that matter. So we tend to think that bigger is better, and let's splash money, let's scream out loudly, and that's the only way we're going to have an impact. So can you tell us a little bit about the little moments and how we can make the most of them?
Yeah, we call these, in brand school, we call these moments of magic. And I think it's part of what really can differentiate you, again, from the larger businesses.
Okay.
It's not just about, you know, a flashy ad campaign. It should be those moments in the product experience where you can surprise and delight your customers. So, you know, for example, for bigger businesses, I've seen, you know, Snapple, where you take off the cap and there's a little quote underneath. Virgin, probably, even though it's a big business now, it still thinks like a very small business. So, for example, if you fly Virgin Atlantic, there's lots of moments. One of my favorite is the salt and pepper shakers that they serve with your meal. They're actually shaped like little airplanes. They're really cute, and a lot of people take them home. And instead of, you know, admonishing people for doing that, they're branded on the bottom. They say pinched from Virgin Atlantic. So, you know, people can look at them, turn them over. And, you know, for small businesses, I think that could be an invoice that you send. You know, instead of sending it really plain, put a quote on it or put an image on it.
They don't need to be grand gestures.
No, they don't. You know, but they're just gestures that other people take for granted. You know, one of the other ones that I love is when Amazon sends the package and it has a smile on the box. You know, your favorite moment in the Amazon experience, at least for me, it's not when I order whatever I want, it's when I get it. You know, and when I get it, to have that reinforced with a smile. And I think a lot of small businesses could do that as well. You know, even if you have to send an invoice or, you know, people are signing up for something on your website, you could still inject a little sense of humor. And that's where having really great quality imagery can help, because a lot of times people don't do that because the image that they've chosen only reproduces on a website. It doesn't reproduce on an invoice, or it doesn't on a packaging slip, or a PowerPoint presentation, or
so many different touch points.
Right.
When you start listing it, there really are so many different touch points for a brand. So
Right.
it's being aware of that as well, all the different ways that people are coming into contact with what you do.
And even owning a color. You know, I mean, my brand is all about purple, as you can probably, you know, surmise. If you look at my websites, you'll see the same thing. But, you know, I'm able to keep that color consistent because I choose imagery where I know that I'm not in 10 different shades. You know, it all's coming from the same source. And I think those moments are what people remember. And getting back to what we were talking about in the earlier mistake, they're also what they tell their friends about. You know, oh, I got this in the mail and it came in this really neat packaging, and they save it, you know, and they show it to people, and then of course they again become your marketing.
And there are so, you know, some of those are so simple and so easy to do. You know, there's not any kind of, you know, major cost or investment that's necessary to just, you know, build and find that moment. You know, the thing that I think about is oftentimes, you know, things like, you know, it could be like a strap line or a little tagline. Those are often what we think about or associate with a particular business, and you know, those are protectable as any other elements of the business. You know, those sometimes have their own rights, whether that's, you know, it could be a trademark protection, or there could be other things that you mentioned, you know, patented, for example. And there are two sides to that. Number one is to ensure that, you know, as a small business, you're not just copying what could be protected. It's good to guard against that to the extent that you can. Sometimes, you know, it's not always possible to avoid it, but there are places on the internet that you can search, you know, things like the intellectual property offices of lots of countries have, you know, searchable databases where you can search for existing trademarks to see if something you have in mind is already protected. But, you know, the other side to that is if you come up with something particularly unique and original, you need to think about whether there's value in trying to protect that yourself as your business. Whether that, again, is a patent or a trademark or whatever it may be. You know, that obviously does come with a cost, so that needs to be weighed up for a small business, but that option is there.
I think if you're bringing it back to the brand perspective, but if you are promising something, or if you have this tagline, and say, for example, it was saying I was innovative or whatever it may be, it's all about being true to that. And again, coming back to that point about making sure that whatever you're claiming is actually legitimate, and that you're doing it consistently.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's one of my mantras in brand school is walk the talk. You know, don't just say I'm innovative or we value our customers. You know, prove it. And a great tool, it's actually a really simple thing to do, and it's great to do, you know, during the summer when we have a lot of interns and people around, is to do a brand experience audit. So hire somebody else to act like they're shopping your brand, and ask them to record the whole experience, you know, from the minute they try to find you on Google till they access your website, to ordering something from you, reading your copy, you know, getting the materials, seeing you present, whatever it is. And ask them to write down, you know, where the promise is really clear and where there are moments where there's a gap between what you're saying and what the actual experience is. So, for example, a lot of people say we believe in, you know, being easy for our customers. We want to make it customers easier, but it's really hard on the website to figure out where to go, you know, where to get more information or how to get in contact. And that's normal, because when you're a small business and you are looking at your website 24/7, it's almost like you can't see it anymore. But when somebody comes with a fresh pair of eyes, they could actually say, well, you know, it really, I wanted to sign up for your mailing list, but I wasn't clear where to input my information, you know, or I wanted more information, I didn't know where to go. Or you say that you're innovative, but all of your copy and all of your imagery really seemed like everybody else's. So that's the difference between telling people you're really funny, you know, and wowing them with a killer joke. You know, you really want to put your brand promise, make it come into life.
It's all about being clever. It really is.
Well, it's, you know, it's about being clever, but it's also about being clever in service to somebody. So one of the things on Virgin is we were very careful not to be gratuitously clever. You know, it was really, if we made a joke, it was a joke where we were saying, you know, we had a billboard once that said BA, which is British Airways, don't give a shiatsu, right? So it was a little bit of play on words there. But what it was saying is that Virgin Atlantic did give onboard massages, right? So you want the cleverness to always be in service of your target and never, never making fun of them. But I think more than anything, it's about being consistent.
Yeah.
Every touch point, every moment is an opportunity to, either be neutral to your brand promise, go against it, or advance it. And I always think you want to advance it.
We've had a question come in here from Stephanie, who is asking, how much value does a tagline actually add to a brand?
I'm a huge, huge fan of taglines.
Okay.
Because I think that, again, a brand is a story. A great brand is a story really well told.
Yeah.
And I think a tagline is your summary. It's the cliff notes of that story. And I think it helps people get you right away. And the nice thing about taglines is you can change them, and it's very easy to change them in and out. So, if you think about a brand like Coca-Cola, for example, for years it's really been its core brand promise is enjoyment. But, grab a Coke and a smile, I'd like to teach the world to sing, open happiness. I mean, they change their tagline, but it's always consistent with the core brand promise.
Okay.
So I also think, though, when you look at a tagline, you should look at the logo, the imagery, the tagline, everything together. You might have a very descriptive name, for your business, but if you do that, then your tagline should probably be more emotional.
And those taglines stick, don't they? In people's minds. I mean, the Coca-Cola ones you mentioned, some of them are 20 to 30 years old, but we still think about them.
Right.
They're still very associated to that brand, and we still think about them.
Yeah. Just do it. Create that tagline, Stephanie.
We have another question here that's come in from Justin. It says, hi Justin. I just took over the creative direction in a company that's been around for a very long time. Beside the obvious social media outlets, what are the most critical and productive things I can begin doing now to ensure our brand is being seen?
Well, I think before your brand is being seen, I would back up and say, who do you want to have see it? Again, to our mistake number 2 about the target audience, and really, what do you want it to say? So I think it's a great opportunity if you're just starting new to make sure that what you're promising is still relevant. And then make sure that if it's still relevant, that it's consistent in all the touch points, like that brand experience audit. And then, I don't think, social media is necessarily for everybody. I think it really depends on who your target is. A lot of times people say, well, we need to get a Facebook account for our business. And I'll say, okay, why? Who are you trying to reach? Are they on Facebook? What's the strategy?
It's a lot of work too.
It is a lot of work,
and to really make the most of it. So unless it's really communicating with the right people, then is it the best use of your time?
And broadening that. I think LinkedIn, if you're business to business, is a great social media. If you're kind of how-to brand, I think YouTube is an excellent use of social media. So don't just think of social media in terms of Facebook and Twitter. If you're a lifestyle brand that has a lot of photographs and you're trying specifically to drive retail sales, and particularly if you're targeting women, Pinterest is where you want to be.
Yeah, sure.
So just like any other media, you need to have a strategy.
Yeah, social media is, we talk about it collectively, but each of those different social media sites has a different way of working and a different audience and a different batch of users. You need to think about which one works for you.
Yeah,
so
and
you can use the right one in the right way.
Exactly, and I would pick one. And do a bang-up job, and then move to the next one. I think a big mistake I see is that people do them all kind of halfway. I want to say a worse word, but halfway.
Okay. We've got another couple of questions to run through, and then a few other things to wrap up. So we'll kick on here. Steve has asked, regarding the big 5 mistakes, are there any exceptions to the rule?
Yeah. That's a great question. There are always exceptions to the rule. I mean, I have to say I've tested these mistakes and the answers among thousands of categories, hundreds of brand school students in countries from Croatia to Ireland to the US. So I think there is truth in all of them.
Okay.
But branding is an art and it's a science, and it's fundamentally a relationship. And one of the things that I learned from Richard Branson when I worked at Virgin was just, he says, screw it, just do it, right? So if you have an idea that you really want to try, and even if conventional wisdom, or even if we're telling you to, to do it one way, and you really feel like it's something that you want to test out, then just do it.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I think we're only learning if we're failing.
Yeah.
So
Very
I
good
would
point.
say the biggest mistake is boxing yourself in. You know, if you have an idea, just go for it. And if you're a small business, again, it's not like you're Coca-Cola and you're going to be making this big statement that's going to be seen by billions of people. You know, the risk is relatively small to try something in beta.
And you can be quite nimble about it too, because you don't have all those layers of sign-off or whatever you might have in a large business.
Yeah, nimble and topical, I think, is great for small business.
And that's the beauty of a subscription as well, is that, you know, you have those visual aids, you know, available to help you try those different things and tell those different stories in a different way with a different image, you know, with a refresh from a subscription.
Sure.
That gives that option.
And this is a question for you, Terry. Eileen has written in asking, can iStock editorial images be used for social media even if your site does e-commerce?
Well, the position with the editorial content that's available via iStock is slightly different to the you know, standard creative photography.
Okay.
That doesn't come with the same, you know, batch of promises and guarantees necessarily.
Right.
There is always an assurance regarding the copyright of the content,
Okay.
but there isn't going to be the promise that we have all the necessary releases from the things that appear in that content. The short answer is that it can be used on social media, but there needs to be a consideration by the licensee that they're using it essentially to a degree at their own risk. So that risk needs to be evaluated and weighed up. But short answer is yes, it's available for license for that purpose, but there are greater considerations. You need to look at the particular image, and if that image is of a person that hasn't signed a model release, you need to be conscious if you're suggesting that that person is endorsing your product without their permission. That does create some risk. So yeah, the safer terrain for that type of usage and in that type of context would be to use a released creative image.
Okay, great. Another question here we have is from Amani asking, we are a big organisation and we rebranded our identity. Many of our staff members don't use the new templates. It's hard to convince them to understand the change. Is it important to push the staff to use the new branding, and how can we go about this?
Yeah, I feel your pain. I've been there. I think the most important thing is to back up a step. If they're not using it, it may be because they don't understand its business value. So rather than just keep training people on the new templates and becoming the logo police, basically, I would try to work with small groups of people that are respected by other people in the organization, in either one-on-one or relatively small settings, and go back and show them, why are you doing this? Why is it important? And usually that has to do with your position within the industry that you work in, differentiating from your competition, making sure that you're being consistent with your customers, but not just you have to use this color and this is the right logo. I think it's much better to back up a step and say, why do we do this? And ideally, when you're creating those guidelines, if you have the chance to do it again, or if anybody else is struggling with the same issue, it's great to have some stakeholders that are outside of the communications department, outside of the sales department, outside of the people who develop the logos, that are actually part of the development process. Somebody from sales, somebody from corporate, from IT, so that you're not just handing them the finished solution. I don't think a brand relaunch should ever be a surprise to everybody in the organization. I don't believe in big reveals. I think it should be something, but by the time it's revealed, everybody says, oh yeah, I knew people were working on that. I understand why. I had the opportunity to input. I really get this, and I get why it's
not being imposed.
Exactly. Yeah, it's more organic than that. Yeah.
Okay. We have a question here from Niles, who's written, as a small distributor, our clients knew us more because of our primary product. Now that we're bringing on additional lines, we'd like to avoid mistakes in rebranding our company name. So, as a small business, if you are growing and you're expanding what you do, how do you tackle that from a branding perspective?
Yeah, I think that brand names are something that should not be changed very often. There are legitimate reasons, there are mergers, if you've really outgrown your business. But I think my first offense would be to see, can you fit those new products under the current name? Can you have a tagline, for example, that expands, so that people understand what those different products have in common? Because rebranding, particularly renaming, it's really hard these days to find an available trademark. You probably have some equity behind it, and it's not something I would go into lightly. And you don't want your brand to have a menu of different TMs, of different brands underneath it, because that gets confusing. If Niles is in the situation where he really doesn't think that it can exist under the current brand, then I would choose a new name that is more suggestive of a benefit, more associative than descriptive. So don't make the same mistake twice. Don't name it specifically. Pick a name, more like Verizon, that kind of name, where it sounds like or a Starbucks kind of name, or an Apple kind of name. I mean, the beauty of Apple, for example, is it's a great trademark because it stands out in its category. But they can go to music, they go to fashion, lifestyle, because it doesn't actually say computers. It's not a name like Microsoft, which is gonna limit you.
Another consideration for a small business, when thinking about trademarks, if they are going to have those, brand names protected, is that maintenance comes at a cost. You can't just have a protected trademark for free. Depending on the categories and the locations and so on that you want to have that trademark protected. That's expensive. It can be expensive, and you need to think about whether or not there's value in protecting particular brand names, and indeed whether it's worthwhile having multiple trademarks and brand names and so on.
We have a great question that's come in here from Linda, who's asked, my small business is a business-to-business consulting company, so B2B. How is branding different when marketing to other businesses versus individuals or consumers?
Okay, because business people are human beings, and they still make decisions based on connection. I mean, I don't think that somebody drives to work, in their BMW, with their Starbucks, with their favorite iPhone, with all that, and then gets to their office where they have to make a decision about what server to buy or what paper to order, and all of a sudden turns that all off. So I think business-to-business relationships are just as important as business-to-consumer relationships, and all of these principles apply. And in fact, I think in business-to-business, sometimes you have to work a little harder to get fresher imagery, because chances are your competitors are feeling that they are different, that you have to be kind of in this business-to-business box. And I think you can really break out of that.
That's unexpected. It's really interesting. We have a question here from Erin, who's asked, our customer base is made up of members of homeowners association governing boards. It's almost impossible to narrow this group down based on any one characteristic, because a board member can really be anyone. So how do you deal with difficult targeting challenges?
Well, I think you can narrow it down. And what we do in Brand School is we create target personas. So we allow you to have up to 3 different personas, but no more than that. And what I would say is look at 3 archetypes of people on those homeowner boards, maybe by what they value. Is somebody more of a relationship person? Is somebody looking more for price? Is somebody else looking more to get the information first? Whatever it is that motivates them, this sort of psychographic benefit versus the demographic. And figure out how you can answer that need, and then look for what the 3 archetypes have in common. So even if you have a very, very broad target audience, chances are if you had 10 clients in front of you, 10 board members, and I forced you to group them in sets, by something other than just the size or location, where they work or where they serve, there probably be something else, and it's usually about emotional triggers. So I would delve into that.
Okay, so you can have a bit of fun with it. So building out those personas sounds like quite a
It is really fun.
exercise.
I mean, we create them. We talk about are they married? How many children do they have? Do they have pets? What was the last fight they had with their husband or wife about? What did they study in college? What do they secretly want to study? We create a whole character, and then we delve into the target. But the really fun thing about it is, even though you're creating these people, then you go out into the world and you're at a conference or a trade show, and then you meet them.
Yeah.
You know, oh wait, that's a Linda. You know, I created her, but she's there because they're true.
Yeah.
You know, they're real. And getting specific like that is really going to help you then have a specific benefit that answers their needs.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's all the questions that we've got time for today. So before we wrap up, there's just a few things to run everyone through. You can sign up to win 1 of 10 free brand health checks by BrandTwist. The link to do so is there on the Google Hangout page, so definitely worth signing up. Julie, can you just tell us a bit about what the brand health check involves?
Sure. So a brand health check is a free strategy session. They're actually a $500 value, but you'll either speak to me or somebody from our BrandTwist team. And today we've been giving general advice. This gives us a chance to look at your website and then to talk to you on the phone and give you very specific feedback. And they're really great for people who already are in business, have very serious branding and business objectives, and are really ready to take the advice and move their brand forward. So they're my favorite thing in the world to do. I'm hoping that you'll sign up, and we'll be talking to 10 people.
Okay, fantastic. Now, if anyone wants to access a recording of today's Hangout at a later date, share it with colleagues, share it with friends, you can follow iStock via all our various social media channels, so that's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Google+. You can also head to the BrandTwist, their social media channels, as well as their blog, and we'll be posting a recording there. And please keep the conversation going. You can use the Branding Hangout hashtag to keep us all in touch and keep the conversation following on. And finally, don't forget everyone, there are a ton of resources out there, most of them free, that will give you more information about how to brand as an SMB. So there's resources like the Brand Channel, there's BrandTwist, there's iStock, of course. You can head to iStock.com, and if you sign up for our newsletter there, you'll receive lots of hints and tips about how to brand, creative trends, all sorts of helpful information like that. You'll also find out about future events and exclusive offers as well. And with that, I think we're done. So thank you everyone for bearing with us through our first Google Hangout. We hope it was helpful, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Guys.